Okay, we're going to run through the basics on repairing these front load washing machines with their most common problem, which is the rear bearing and seal, which goes bad. Normally you start by taking the top off. This particular unit has kind of this filler top on it because it was most likely a stacked unit, so it would have had a dryer on top of it. So we're going to go ahead and pull that off, but so you want to pull the top cover, you pull the back cover. I'll show you how to do that. We're going to pop the door off just to get out of the way, and then this lower panel as well. So let's just get started with those items. The door is really easy. Okay, let's go ahead and pull this filler cover off here. These bottom panel screws, so you pull it straight out, and then these pins drop out of their holes on the top. Go ahead and get the soap dispenser out of the way as well. It's got a little lock back here. You just push down on that, and that whole thing will slide out, get out of the way. We're going to pull this back cover off. You'll see that the cover, like around here, this extension cord is going to stay there, and it's actually mounted to this crossbar, so the cover is going to come off around it. You get them all out. So let's pull this back cover off of here. Okay, so this is the tub, and right inside here there are two bearings and a seal, and that's actually where the failure is inside those. Okay, we're back around to the front of the machine. We're going to pull this boot off. I'm going to show you how to do it. It's really simple. I have a little hook tool here to do it with, and there's the spring right there, and then this wire ring basically holds it in place, and so you just pull it off just like that. You end up with this coming off. Once you do that, then you can pull this rubber boot off. You can just pull this off around here, and then I usually just fold that in to get it out of the way, but there is a problem that you'll run into right here with this. You take these two screws out because there is a boot right inside of here that this has to slide off of, and that boot also has a little clamp on it, and all we're going to do is we're going to give that wire clamp just a little twist to get it to come apart. So we open it up like that, and then you can see it'll allow this boot. I usually just leave it sitting on there, and then you can slide this boot off of that end right there. You can pull the clamp off and set it aside. While I'm here, I'm also going to show you, this is where you'll find your model number of your machine. This one is an FTF530FS4. Those are helpful for us when we're trying to determine what kind of a repair kit you need in terms of the bearings and the seal that you need. They're not always located inside the front door, but like 99% of the time they are. Sometimes they're located on the back of the machine or elsewhere on the door. I'll also throw in another quick tip here. If you ever need to replace your door switch, which is this, pulling this boot off, as I just showed you how to do, and folding it inside, you don't even have to take this side off. You can just fold this side in, and then you take these two screws off, and you can slide the whole door switch this way and unplug it and stick a new one in there. It takes just a few minutes to switch those out. Okay, I want to show you how this assembly is held in here. So if you look at this whole drum assembly, you can see it's kind of, I can bounce it up and down. That is what helps to maintain balance in the machine when it's running. But you've got these two upper springs. There's one right here and one over here. There's two big springs that hold it up. And so we need to take those off in order to get the machine apart, to get this drum assembly out. But before we do that, we want to clear the way underneath it. So we're going to take the motor off, and there are also some shocks that are located in the bottom that you got to be aware of, and I'm going to show you how to take those off. You can see that. That's one of the shocks. And then there's also another shock over here. This right here is the shock. And so we're going to pull those out. Okay, taking the motor off is incredibly simple on these machines. Just have 3 screws that you have to take off. And the motor just falls right off. You want to disconnect this wire by pinching these two together and then just working that off. Very simple. That pulls your motor out. Okay, next thing up is you want to unbolt this. This is actually your pump from the base of the machine. And there's 2 bolts on here that go into the bottom plate of the machine. Once you pull those out, then this motor just lifts right off the bottom. It's very simple. Okay, the first line we're going to take off of this pump is the actual drain line. So if you pinch it like that, you can work it off of there. And then you can just pry this off the pump. If you twist it a little bit, it'll help break the seal. And then you can pull it off. And you can just shove that out the back. You might get a little bit of moisture out of it, so watch for that. And now the only thing we have left is the boot that actually goes up to the tub itself, which is left on the back of the motor. And we're going to unplug this motor as well. There's a little tab on here. You push on that and pull that out just like that. That disconnects the motor. Okay, we're still pulling this motor out. This is actually pretty quick to do, but there's a few steps to it. Rather than taking the clamp off the back of the pump, which is that clamp right there, I like to take this one off above it, which is right here. And this just unscrews a little 932. Back that screw out of there. Open that clamp up a little bit. There we go. So we got the clamp off of there now. Now we want to get under the boot. And there you go. The boot pops right off. Okay, there is another clamp and another hose. You'll see it connected right there. I'll show you where that goes. This actually goes up here. And if you look on the side of the tank going down, you have this hose. And this hose is coming all the way up. And it connects to that little switch right here. So we're going to pull this little hose off of there. Little clamp off of here. And we're going to pull down on it. Okay, once you get that clamp down, then you can twist this hose. You can kind of feel it break loose on there as you twist it. And then once you do that, then you can pull it off without breaking anything. And then you're just going to feed this down because that's still connected to your pump. And the reason why I'm showing you how to do it this way is because it'll make the reassembly that much easier. Okay, now that we have that little hose, this one here, that's coming down from the top. We just disconnected that one, so it's free to come down, but we have this little canister here that is attached right here. And what you want to do is take a flat screwdriver and you stick it into these little holes on the edges to try to pull that off of there. That's one way of doing it. Okay, another way of getting this piece off of here is take a small socket like this and you can stick it on there and it will essentially pinch those two together. Now what you have to do is push it on there and then apply some pressure from the other side to get that to pop out. There's some little retainer tabs on this, so it takes a little bit of working to get it out of there. You might have to twist the socket a little bit. Okay, we're going back in the front of the machine now. We're going to pull these bottom shock mounts out. There's one on each side. And I want to show you a little trick for how to pop these out. I like to use just a socket. This is a 7/16 12-point socket. And if you can see, there's a retainer here that slides through the bottom piece. And I just put that socket on there and then hit it a couple times with the hammer, and you can get that pin to pop out of there. You can pull the socket off and just use the blunt end of the extension to hit it through the rest of the way. And this one on this side, by design, it hits this controller, but you can leave it sitting there and you can still pull this shock up out of the way. I'll skip that. I'm just going to take it out. So you just reach in and pull that out. So that's what it looks like. And so by us putting this socket on the end of this extension, you essentially slip it over like that and it puts pressure on that tab to push it down and slide this pin out. And then once this pin is out, then you can pull these shocks out of its retainer like that. You can push it up into itself like that. So that's that. That's pretty easy to do. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Put that socket on it. And we push it part of the way out there. I'm going to pull the socket off and just use the end of the extension and push it out. And then you can slide it out with your hand. And then we can pull that shock apart, slide it up in there, and we're good to go. Okay, we have the lower mount out now. I'm going to take in and show you there's an upper end to that right there. The reason why you want to be careful and go ahead and take the time to pull the upper one of these out along with the lower, even though you could take a chance pulling the tub out without, is because these shocks, oddly enough, there isn't much to them, but they cost about $60 for a set to replace them. Okay, once you pull that other pin out, then you can, this whole shock just drops out of there. We'll do the other side. You pull the same thing. Pull it out here. Kind of challenging to get to, but not impossible. So there we go. Pulled that out. Pulled that pin out and pulled another one of the shock assemblies out. Turn the machine around and I'll show you this. The only thing holding your drain hose in place at this point is a tie wrap here. So you can cut that tie wrap. You can replace the layers and allow you to pull this drain line out of here. Okay, we want to pull the tub assembly out of the back of this now. And in order to do that, we need to support that tub assembly. And we got to pull this back panel off. And then you don't have to disconnect anything off of this. You can just basically fold it forward just to get out of the way because we're going to need some space in this opening. If you're working by yourself, it does make the assembly a bit lighter if you pull these counterweights off here. I'll show you how to do that. It's very simple. You can pull these off and you save this hardware because obviously you're going to want to use it to screw that back on. Set those aside. And then you pull this back pulley off. I'm going to pull this back pulley off just to get the bolts out around this counterweight. Sometimes this pulley comes right off. Sometimes you have to have a little pry bar to get it to come off. So sometimes you get it to come off there. This has a little bit of an end on it, so it gives you something to pry against. When I go around it, again, you're prying between basically aluminum and plastic, and so you don't want to do it too hard, but you're just trying to break that connection. Once you get it started, you can usually wiggle it off like that. And then those are the bolts for the counterweight that slid out. We'll set that aside, and then the counterweight just slides right out of this pocket. And the reason why that's helpful is, especially if you're working by yourself, these counterweights, you know, it weighs an extra, I don't know, 5 or 10 pounds or something. So it's just a little bit less to lift when you go to pull this thing out. So if you have watched any of my past videos, you'll know that I have almost always used a little go-kart tire, which works really well. You just need something that's about 6 inches, and you slip it underneath here. And the biggest reason why I do that is because to protect this computer box here, just so the thing doesn't come down on it and maybe damage it or damage the tub or something else. Okay, we have to pull these springs off, and these things are not unruly. I mean, you can lift up on this thing. You find a spot in the front to grab onto it, and in the back, and you can lift up on it enough to get these springs off. The other thing you can do, if it's too much and it's too heavy for you, then you can take a ratchet strap and you can set this up, and you can use this, or you can set something else across the top of here, like a piece of wood. I am going to pull these have retainers on the top of them. So take one off, loosen the other one, and then you can just rotate this around, and now that hook will come up. If you don't do that, the hook won't come up. It's a safety design you can use to keep them from popping off the machine, bouncing around. So you can reach through the front of the machine, most of the weight's in the front. Real quick before I do that, there is one hose here that I have not disconnected yet. It's a hose that goes right into the top of the machine, and it's quite easy to take off. You just basically press it together, and you can pull it out just like that. So it sits in the top of the machine, but you gotta pull it out so it doesn't hang up on you when you're trying to pull this down. Okay, now what you're gonna wanna do is lift up on the machine. There's still some counterweights on the front of it, so it's reasonably heavy. And then find something to lift up on the back enough to be able to get these springs unhooked. So we're gonna slide this across here and drop this down. Slide that hooked on the front counterweight hole, and then this back one will go over the top of this piece of wood here. We're taking some weight off of that. And we're going to lift up on that, and you can see how easy it is to pull those hooks off. These hooks have these little plastic safety connectors on them. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing on this side. You'll notice on these that the upper hook that goes in the machine on the metal is a little bit narrower than the lower hook, which goes in the tub itself. So just something good to note for when you go to reassemble. Now there's essentially nothing holding this up, so it's going to drop down when I release this strap. But we have a piece of wood underneath it to catch it. So we'll get our strap off of it. And now we're ready to roll the tub out of the back of it. That's essentially what we're going to do. Which this is pretty heavy, and you have to make sure it clears the back of the tub. I'm going to set it on the ground. Okay. And we're going to want to tip it up this direction, because you have to take all these bolts out. We got all the bolts out of it, and so part the tub. Sometimes these come right apart really easily, and sometimes they're a little more challenging. This is the heavy side because I have the counterweight on it, and this does have a seal in it that you want to take care of because I'm end up reusing it. And now this is the tub that your clothes get washed in, and it is connected to a shaft. It is sticking out here. It's already starting to come out. If you have any troubles getting this to come out, then all you have to do is just pick up this assembly a couple inches and then drop it on the concrete, and it'll pop it out. So this is called the spider assembly. The other thing you want to take a close look at is the condition of this shaft. You want to take your finger and you want to check this shaft to make sure there's no ridges, because sometimes when the bearings wear out, it'll wear a spot in the shaft and it'll ruin it. Okay, this kind of gets at the heart of the problem here. So there's a seal here that you want to pop out, and you're not going to reuse it, so you don't have to be too careful with it. But it just comes right out like that. This seal has these lips on it that basically ride around the shaft. It slides through here, and you can see the bearings are rusted, which is an indication that they have been getting wet. So the seal has failed. Either water was getting around the outside here, or it was getting past these lips, between them, the lips and the shaft. And what happens is these get dry. I can feel they're kind of rigid. They're just a little bit stiff and old, and they get dry. And so they more easily allow moisture to leak through them to get to the bearings. Okay, I'm going to show you a trick that I use. You just pick up this assembly and slide a bucket underneath it and set it on it like that. What that does is it gives you some space underneath for the bearings, the outer bearing to drop into. So I have a really solid, strong shaft here that I can feed on. Sometimes these are really difficult to get out, sometimes they are not, but you do not want to have sort of a weak approach to this. You just want to go at it with some strength to get these things out. So you heard it drop into the bucket underneath. So that is our outer bearing. So let's flip this tub over and take the inner bearing out. Okay, so we got both the bearings out, we got the seal out. So these parts are essentially what you will get with our repair kits. This seal is the crux of the problem. This seal sits over the top of this inner bearing like this. The outer bearing sits, there's some space in between it, but it sits like that. When this seal fails, water gets past here, it ruins this bearing. Of course, you're going to replace this bearing. I have seen the outer bearings get ruined as well. So you replace these two bearings, you replace the seal, and you reassemble. And so this is the halfway point. So we're ready to start reassembling now. Ready to replace the bearings. I like to wipe these out as good as possible. You can use a little bit of assembly lube if you want to. There is just a little bit of grease on these bearings, so it's okay. You want to just tap squarely You can also use a block of wood if you want to, but what I like to do is if you have the old bearing, I take the old bearing, set it on here, and you just want to pound this thing in. You can see that bearing going in. What we're looking for when we're done here is this thing's going to be pretty much flush, but the tone of the noise is going to change to kind of a thud once it's in all the way, and then you know it's fully seated. It's very important. I can't express this enough, how important it is to get these fully seated, because there's only so much space on the shaft, and if this is not fully seated, your spider assembly is going to get driven into the seal on the inside. And so you want to make sure this is fully seated. So just listen up and you'll hear there's a different sound once it's all the way in. Hear that? Kind of a thud. Now you know that that bearing is fully seated and it's ready to go. So there's nothing else that we have to do on the outside. We're going to flip it around to do the inside. And the inside is a bit more challenging because you can't swing very easily. You can't get down there, so you have to use some kind of an extension. Okay, I've got the new bearing here, which is ready to go in. I'm going to set the old bearing on top of it just to protect it. Then I have this this piece of pipe here. I'm just going to use it as an extension. If this doesn't make sense when you're watching the video, it's because you haven't tried it. Because of this space right here, you can't swing down and pound this bearing in squarely, and so you need something to get it up to help you with that. Now remember, you get to this point, you think it's in all the way. You can actually stick your finger in there and you can feel there's like another ½ inch or so that it needs to go down. So it's very important to pay attention to that, because this is where you have to have space where your seal is going to sit. Because remember, your seal goes in over the top of this. I don't know if you can hear that sound, but you can clearly hear a difference. Once I get that bearing in all the way, it kind of has a thud sound. And you'll notice on this inner bearing that it's recessed. Okay, we got our new seal here. We've already cleaned up the surface on the inside of here. If you put the seal in here and it doesn't feel super snug when you're starting to put it in, then I would recommend putting a little bit of silicone just around the outside of here. You can either way. It isn't super necessary, but if it's loose in there, then you definitely want to do that. And then you want to give it like 12 to 24 hours to dry before you run water inside of it. The key to this is the condition of these lips right here. These are really soft. They're new. There's 2 sets of lips there. There's also, the back set has a spring behind it. So this spring is actually putting pressure on that back lip to keep it tight. And these are riding on the shaft the whole time to prevent water from getting in there. I usually just press this in just a little bit. You can feel it start to go in with your fingers. So I've got a block of wood here that's the same width about as the seal. And so you want to try to span that seal and then just tap it gently, get that seal seated in there. It's going to sit right on top of that bearing. Okay, you want to check your seal. There's a groove here that's got a seal in it all the way around. You can pull that out. You can check it. You can inspect it. We're ready to put the drum back inside of this tub. Let's check this. Like I said earlier, you want to make sure that the shaft is clean and in good condition and that you don't have any cracks in this spider. Clean, and then I'm going to put just a little bit of lubricant on that, on the shaft. We'll run around it. That'll help with assembly and making sure that we don't damage the lips on our seal. Let's pull this back over here. And then we're going to take this assembly and we're going to slide it right through our new bearings and seal. And we're going to check our exterior seal to make sure it's in good shape all the way around, and then we can install this heavy front side. Now if you want, before you do this, if you have any question about the condition of this seal, you can run just a little bit of RTV sealant, silicone around that. Got our sub assembly back together and it's ready to go back in the machine. See, we still have our block of wood sitting in there, which is what we want. And if you pick this up with your hands inside of it, you can move that bucket off to the side and you can lift this up and you can set it with the front down and kind of roll it up onto that block of wood like that. So we're back into the zone. Okay, we're going to put these springs on. Remember, for safety, you want to do these first. So the tub has something holding it. I'm going to use a little piece of paracord here to lift up on this. It allows me to take advantage of the stretch in the spring to pull this up in here and get it hooked on. Okay, we're gonna put this boot back on here, and we're just gonna reverse the order of that plastic thing through there. We got this clamp here, we have to get around this. And then I usually hold these two pieces together with my fingers, and then take a pair of pliers and kind of just twist these two together, which is all they do. They just sit just like that. If you put a little bit of spray silicone lubricant, this rubber boot will pop in a lot easier. And once you get it in all the way around, then you're gonna take your wire and you're gonna put that in, and the flex on this is obviously the spring. So I usually try to put the spring towards the bottom, for sure not visible. Good to go. And then remember these two screws that hold that plastic housing right there. We'll put the door on. Spins around nice and smooth. We got the motor on. These belts kind of self-align. There's teeth on the motor. If it looks like it's off on the pulley a little bit, you can move it on the teeth.